Welcome, friends. Welcome to tonight's class. I'm excited to get painting with you here tonight. This is the studio. This is studio life. Tonight, we're going to be painting some cowboy boots. And this is just a really fun class because we're going to use some gel pens. We're going to use watercolor. And this is a great class to do. You can take pictures of your own shoes and use them, or even set up a still life to do this. I just felt like, we're in rodeo season right now, so it's a great time to get painting and painting some cowboy boots. I always enjoy painting them. So if you're tuning in with me live tonight, please let me know down in the comments below that you're here and where you're tuning in from. If you're new here, my name is Paige. I'm the Chief Pixel Pusher and Paintbrusher over here at pageweber.net and at Gumption on my YouTube channel. And yeah, without further ado, let's kind of get tuned in and set up for our class tonight. So I'm going to shift my camera. All right. So tonight, these are the colors that we're using tonight for this exercise. You can use any kind of gel pen. I'm using gel pens because they sit nicely on top of our painting. So that is great. We're also going to be using some white gel pens here. I find that the 8 or 10 size is great. And this one looks like it is a size 6 for this orange. I'm going to throw up on the screen. This is the worksheet that I typically offer my students who are in the Watercolor Rockstar Paint Club. They have access to this. So if you can take a screenshot of it to get us started, or you can join the Watercolor Rockstar Paint Club if you want to paint with us. We do 2 classes a month. We do a private class, and then we do this YouTube class, and they have access to over 24 classes now. I want to say it's really closer to double that. I think the last 2 or 3 years I've been doing the studio class. So they have lots to choose from, lots of backlog classes. Okay, so first you're going to want to sketch out your cowboy boots. And many of my students do that beforehand. And then we need to mix some of our paint. So the colors that we're using tonight, we're using ultramarine blue, cobalt teal, mineral purple, raw umber, and neutral tint. Now, if you don't have each of those colors, that's okay. Use what you have. I really love raw umber for some of these exercises. It's a great watercolor color to have on your palette. Of course, you can make purple with blue and red pigments. So often, if I'm going to mix this, I'm going to use ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and which we're already using ultramarine blue on our palette. So let's get to mixing some of these colors so we are ready to rock and roll. So again, if you're tuning in live with me, let me know where you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see where people are. I have students from all over the US. I think watercolor is a great exercise just to relax, and that's kind of what we like to use it for. Is to be creative and to have fun. I'm going to show you really quickly now that I'm thinking about it. Most of my students kind of know the paper that I use, but this is a great paper that you can get at your local art supply store that isn't too expensive. That's great to use with some of these little exercises that we do and for fun. Well, hello, Anita. Anita is in North Carolina. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I'm excited to have you here with me. Welcome. All right. Okay, so I get distracted easily, and then I get to chit-chatting and then forgetting what I'm doing here. So I'm going to keep adding some paints to my palette here. And this is cobalt teal. I really like cobalt teal too. It's kind of a unique color to be able to use, a little more opaque. This is a little bit of our ultramarine blue that we'll be using. We aren't going to be using it a lot. We're really just using that ultramarine blue for our shadow. I'll throw up my cowboy boots here. Anita asks, am I using Winsor and Newton paints? I have a lot of Core. That's QOR paints. You might recognize Golden paints. That Core is a brand of Golden paints. So a lot of my paints are Core or Daniel Smith. This one I think is a Holbein pigment that I have. As you may or may not know, when you become an artist, you often start collecting art supplies. And so, but the majority of these paints are Core colors. This is neutral tint here. So you can see neutral tint is a very nice kind of dark brown. It's a good one to have on your palette. If you had sepia on your, if you had that pigment too, you could use sepia if you wanted to. And then we have our mineral violet. And this one I believe is a Holbein color too. It's just one of my favorite pigments. It's of course a convenience color. You can always mix purple with a little bit of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. Okay, so for now, that's probably good for mixing the pigments. At least we've got them on our palette. So we're going to start with our raw umber. This will be good to get us laying out the main color of our boots. And you can work one of two ways. You can choose to work wet into wet, or you can do wet on dry. I think tonight I'm going to work wet on dry. I'm just seeing if I might need to use a bigger brush here, but we'll see if we can get away with using this number 6 Utrecht brush, round brush. So I'm just going to get enough good paint there, and I'm going to start moving the bead. And if you've been on this channel at all, moving the bead is a great way to make sure that you evenly distribute paint and that you're not leaving some streaky marks. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but as you can see, this is my bead here. So if I just kind of move that bead down, I'm going to try to get all the area that I can here. If you dip into your pigment, that's great. If you need to add more pigment into your area, but if you add water, then it has an opportunity to kind of backsplash. I'm gonna hit this area too, so we can make them come together at the same point. Again, this just offers a smoother transition. Because in Idaho, things start drying pretty fast here. And so I'm trying to be speedy. And apply evenly. You might have to dip into your paint a little bit more. Of course, I could go into this other boot here, but I'm just going to move this bead to the end of this boot as quickly as I can here. And then I can kind of move into this secondary boot. Hey, Laurel. It's nice to see that you and Andy are here too. Welcome. Okay, so I'm going to move into this other boot, move in the bead. You might have to dip into more paint, but we're just starting off with this raw umber. Moving our way down the boot. Feel free to offer any questions in the chat. Periodically, I do look up and can try to answer any questions that you might have. So this is offering a really nice, clean application here, good pigment load. Maybe like tea a little bit. You got a nice solid color going in here. And it will dry nice and even. If you need to clean up any lines, you can do that while your paint is still wet a little bit. All right, it's looking good here. So while this is drying, you know, if you're new to my class, I hop around a little bit to allow areas to dry if I can, and to fill in other areas. So I can actually bring in my neutral tint down here where it won't disrupt what's going on in this other area of the boot, so the colors aren't mixing. Now, you might really like that effect to have them mix, and if you do, then you won't mind that. But to work into my values here, and for time efficiency for class, I'm just going to work into this neutral tint. I might even add a little bit more pigment here. And again, we're working wet onto dry and moving that bead. And so if you missed the first part of it, as we were getting started here, shoes are a great subject to paint. You have them readily available, whoever you are. Some of them might be high heels or they might be different kind of shoe, but they're kind of fun to paint and to practice. I've painted lots of Converse shoes and cowboy boots. And since we're in the season right now, cowboy boots seemed appropriate. So I'm going to hit this bottom portion of this other boot too. Now, when you're illustrating, sometimes you'll hear illustrators talk about local color, and that's the base color of whatever you might be painting. So we're just kind of painting in this base color or local color initially here. So since some of my paint isn't dry, a lot of this paint is dry, but I have a little ways to go. I'm going to hit this with a hair dryer, which means I'm going to mute myself really quickly. And this might give you a little bit of breathing room as you are painting along, for those who are. So I'm just going to mute myself really quickly. It'll be just a moment. Okay, so we have our base colors in here. And I think while I'm at it, I may just add in my purple into my boot. I just saw that I painted in this area where my cobalt teal is supposed to go into. So that's a great opportunity for us to handle that. Sometimes when you make mistakes in watercolor, it feels kind of permanent. We'll see how we can play with that and fix that. So first I'm going to dip into my mineral violet. Again, you can use ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson if you want to make a purple color. I'm just going to go down the center here. We aren't done with the body of the boot yet, but we're just getting all our local color in here. And really, you could use any color in the center of this boot. It doesn't have to be purple. I expect Andy will be making his own color system for this painting. So get creative if you want to. All right. So I can let that dry and now move into my cobalt teal here. And just get this on the inside of this boot here. Again, just moving that bead to create a nice even flow. This is your bead right here, that little bead of pigment. It's nice and concentrated. Now we have this other section here where I accidentally painted in this raw umber. So we can do a couple of things. We can take a clean brush. I'm dipping my brush in clean water. I'm going to tap it a little bit on this paper towel and going to see if I can scrub a little bit and lift some of this paint, which with a clean paper towel, you can do a little lifting and see how it goes here. This is also a great way to soften edges. So we lifted it a little bit. I think this is going to be just fine for us. Then I can go in with this cobalt teal. We'll see what we get. But I think this is going to work out just great. Cobalt teal is a little more on the opaque side. And I'm going to hit this edge because I painted it too. Get excited, and then there you go. So sometimes you can really fix things in watercolor. Great. Now, hopefully you guys will have to let me know how the feed is. I feel like maybe I have a little bit of a delay here. And so you'll have to let me know if the feed is okay in chat. Okay, so we have our colors in here. We can now go back over this portion with our neutral tint. Here are the colors if you need to take a quick look at those if you're just tuning in. And I can go back over this whole area that I created earlier. And see, that's kind of nice. It goes back over this area down below, so it darkens it a little. And we'll have some areas that we'll need to darken a little bit, but go back over here. Okay. Oh, we have a comment here. Okay, so I'm glad because I'm getting a little bit of a delay on my end, but I'm glad it's good on your end. You just never know, you know? Okay, so we've got our neutral tint in here. We might want to lighten some of these areas, and if that's the case, if you need to do that a little bit while your paint is wet, you can take a brush that you've dabbed off and just slide it around in the area that you want to lighten a little bit, and that can create a little bit of a highlight. And so you might find there are a couple of places where the light shines on it in typically from above, where you might want to lighten that a little. So you can do a little bit of lifting if you need to. Maybe this shelf up here. And we'll kind of see how that goes. Now, these look pretty flat compared to these other boots that I have here. And that's because I lifted a little color and I've added color. So I'm going to show you how to do both of those things. And in this particular instance, it's good to use a flat brush for this, or what they call a bright brush. And I'm going to dip it into my water so it's wet. I'm going to tap it off a little bit on my paper towel, and then I can create this toe line here, just gently scrubbing back and forth, and this creates some light, which then you can tap with your paper towel. We'll have one here. You can tap that with your paper towel. You might need to clean off your brush more than once. We have a light area that comes in here, so I might scrub this a little bit. Now you can paint around this too, but I want to show you how to do it both ways in case you're new to painting or you kind of love these techniques. Again, Anita asked what paint variety of paint these are. This is a raw umber that is a Holbein color, which is a great question to ask, what brand paint I'm using. We also have this area back here, you know, when your boots are creased a little bit. So you can see we're really starting to create some depth with our boots. I think I'm going to work up and down here vertically. You could even work down into this area if you want, and then you can just pick that up. So we're just kind of shaping these boots a little bit. Now, if you have good paper, it makes this is a lot easier to do with decent paper. It can be more tricky if you're using a cheap paper, because paper really, it does impact us when we're doing watercolor. So we're really starting to get some shape on these boots. You could even, might even do it there. Okay, so they're really starting to look like a nice, good worn pair of boots. So what you can do a couple of things at this juncture. Is you can go back in with a little bit more pigment. You could use a little more raw umber, or you could go in with a darker brown to get some of these darker areas here. I'm going to demonstrate both because sometimes it really is interesting to see how using the same color can impact it. So I'm going to go along the side here of the front of this boot and draw this paint in these darker areas and around the toe. You could come in here to in the instep here. And this is by using that same raw umber color that we started with. Using a nice number 6 round brush. These are some daily drivers. So they're nice. They have this great kind of buckskin color. Okay, so I might need to get a little bit more of this raw umber and mix it up here. And we'll move to the other boot. Then I'll show you what it looks like when we move to a bit darker color. So I'm going to go along the side of this boot, just along the side. And if you want to soften this edge, a great way to do that is taking your brush, dipping it in your water so it's clean, tapping off the brush, and then just riding along the side of your line. That helps soften it up a little bit. Sometimes you have to pat off your brush a little bit. And that's how to soften an edge. We don't have to do too much of that in this class, but it's a technique that comes in handy sometimes. Go around this side of this boot too. And maybe square off this toe a little bit. Of course, at this juncture, you could even use your round brush to create some lines if you wanted to, because our boots often have some lines. So you could do that if you wanted to in between these areas that we lifted earlier. Give it a little character. Okay, so what if you want to darken your boots or you didn't get them dark enough? You could move to your neutral tint here, or you could even mix your neutral tint and a little bit of your raw umber together. And you could go in and just go over that area. It's nice to do when it's dry. So you're just making a nice layer over the top of what you've already laid down. Maybe we want to accentuate this shadow here. Whoops. Went a little rogue here. So this is how you can use a darker color to even accentuate that. Now, because we're using these, we're going to be using these white gel pens to write in some of these designs. You may want to work a little bit darker and darken a little bit of this a little bit more. So that will stand out a little bit better. It's entirely up to you. So we're doing pretty good on time. We're moving right along here. I might want to lift a little bit of color here in this area. So I'm taking a wet brush, I'm going to tap it off. It's clean water, and I might just scrub along this area. and then use my paper towel to lift a little bit. If you need to go back in and darken an area, then you can. So I have this little area underneath at the heel that might need to be darkened a little. There we go. And you might want to darken along the seaming of the boot, but I would need a smaller brush for that. Let's see, what do I have here? Now, not everybody's got one of these. This is I'm not even sure, this is probably a 1 or a 0 brush. This is a little bit longer bristles. You may not be able to see that. I'm having a little bit of a delay on my end. These are great to have. I like to use these if I need a really crisp line, or if you needed whiskers or something. Some of these little liner brushes are nice. This is a Trekell brush, although it's heavily used. You can see how you can use it to create a little bit of a line. So I want to add a little bit here. And I might run it along here, the leather of the boot. Great for cleaning up lines too, if you need to anywhere, if you're feeling like something isn't defined very well. Okay. So in our boot design, I have some seaming here that you can see. Now you could leave your boot design as is, or if you want to get into some of those little details, you can do that too. And I can also do a little lifting here, which this cobalt teal is great for lifting. Some pigments are going to be better than others. So I've wet the area that I want to lift, and you can see it lifts really nicely. If you wanted to add a little bit more color, you can do that too, and I can show you what that'll look like too. Just another layer of that same color. Can just help create a line or a little bit of definition here. Okay, so one really important thing that I always feel about when we're painting objects is it's important to give it a shadow, because everything has a shadow, and we obviously have a lot of light in our painting here. So this is where our ultramarine blue comes into play. We're going to water this down a lot. And we can just kind of take this right along the bottom here. And the front here of this toe. So we have a little bit of grounding for our boots. More water in this instance is better than less water. You can see how light this is. If you need to go back in for a second application, you can do that. I think the biggest thing that I've seen with students that they struggle with is that water paint ratio, and that really comes with, you know, playing with your paints and practice. But when in doubt, you can always use a little bit more water. Okay. So we could keep painting these and doing that, but we want to make sure that we get enough time in to play with our gel pens and have fun there too. So when you feel like you have gotten a good grasp of your Western boots here, then you can start playing with designs within, oh, there goes a pen down, playing with your designs within this area of your boot. And so these boots in particular, they kind of have a flower design. Let's zoom in here a little bit. So I just kind of played on that theme, and without having to get too, I mean, you can be as detailed as you want, you know, or not. But I just started making little round dots that would represent petals here. So hopefully we're focused here. And I kind of alternated them down the boot per the design a little bit. So this is just kind of like half circles with little circle designs. Now, if you're in our paint club, you've already gotten this worksheet for this class. So you have the advantage over those tuning in from afar for the first time. But hopefully you can see that pretty well. And that's probably good for those. And then I can start adding my white pen. Now I like to use this size 8 Jelly Roll pen because it does a better job. I can see it better than my other sizes. So then I just kind of am doing this flower design around it. Zoom out a little bit. This one's a little harder to see. I think it'd be a little bit easier to see maybe if my purple had gotten a little bit darker, but that's okay. It's fun to play. And just having fun here. Now you could add a design in the center. I think I have little gold dots in different areas, but we're missing our gold pin tonight, so you can just add little flourishes or details that you like there. And I think I missed a little area here on the other side, so I'm just going to paint it in with this little purple paint here. So now I can also take this white gel pen and I can do some designs in our boots here. So we can see if our little flourish will show up here. It's kind of like an upside down cursive I a little bit. It can be any kind of design that you want to have. Let's see if I can replicate this on the other side, maybe. Kind of like an I shape a little bit. And this is just a Jelly Roll pen. You can find this at any Hobby Lobby or place like that. And then you can just kind of do a dotted line because these boots have this stitching. Hey, Jan, it's nice to see you in here. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I miss seeing you guys in person. I hope to see you next week. Welcome, welcome. So I'm just taking this gel pen, and you know it's going to be most effective where it's darker. So hopefully it'll show up. I'm just doing a little dotted line. You might hear old Chewy barking up there. He's saying hello. And then there's a lot of stitching around this area here. I think my students, one of these boots might be missing this little stitch area. So you can kind of draw it in there. I'm just kind of tapping that pin dotted line. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as you can see, it shows up really nice. Thanks for tuning in, Love and Life, and for your comment. They might be a little too clean, huh? I have some of those pointy cowboy boots too, and they're kind of nice. My dad always wears those too, instead of the squared off toes. Thanks for tuning in tonight. So you can just sort of have fun. We're just going to have fun with our little design here. And maybe you're a cowgirl or cowboy at heart, and this is the only pair of cowboy boots that you have are these painted boots, and that's cool too. And I think kind of what I did at a certain point was I came back in with a little bit of cobalt teal to draw in that design. So you can also do that as well. These are your boots. You can do what you like. And these are a great, these little exercises are a great little card. They make a great card. You could send somebody, being that it is rodeo season, you could give them to your favorite cowgirl, cowboy. But I know I have several little paintings on my fridge from my family that they've sent me, and I love it. Let me know what questions you might have as you're tuning in. Happy to try to answer any questions you might have. Love and Life says she loves being here. She lives in rodeo country and people wear them for daily wear. Everyone pretty much has them and loves them. Thank you very much for your nice compliment. Thank you. I hope that you'll be painting with us soon, and you're able to paint with us. I definitely like cowboy boots because I think there's what's better than being able to throw on a pair of boots. You don't even have to tie them. They're durable. They look good. And who doesn't love cowboy boots? They're the best. So thank you so much, Love and Life, for being here. So you can see in some of these areas that I have really taken this paint out, it's a little harder to see the gel pen. So again, that's where your benefit of using a little darker pigment is helpful. And I'll probably, just because we have a little extra time tonight, I'll probably go in with another color just to do that, because we've got some time here. These classes usually are about an hour, and this class will be up for a week. So feel free, if you're just tuning into my channel, to come back, and I highly recommend either you take a screenshot of our boots and you draw them, or you take a picture of your own boots and draw them too. Okay, so I see where I could have gone in with my purple pigment here. So I might try to do that and see if I can paint in that area. I got so excited earlier, I painted over it, but I think we can paint in here and have some fun with our gel pens over on this side too. So this is a mineral violet color. This is really one of my favorite colors. And I love the combination of mineral violet with raw umber. There's just something really nice about that color combination. And so I'll just tap in a little bit of pigment. This will be a little bit darker than our other one, but that's okay. That'll actually let that pen stand out a little bit better. Looks like we have a question here. What pens am I using? Using, just tuned in, not painting. Oh, you don't wear boots. You're a flip-flop girl. All right. Well, that's good too. You could paint some flip-flops. So I'm using some Jelly Roll pens. This one is a white, here we go. White Jelly Roll pen. This is a number 8. I find that the larger numbers are a little bit better. I have a number 5, and I don't recommend this one. It's a little bit harder to get it to work. And then I have this pen, which is a Jelly Roll Moonlight pen. I don't know, my internet is giving me some trouble, but this is a number 6 Jelly Roll. Oh, you can see it right here. And this one's really nice. It comes out really nice. And so you can get these at any Hobby Lobby or Michael's that you might have in your town, but you can also take a screenshot maybe if you can see this Moonlight one very well. And these are what we're using to do the little designs within here. I also have a nice gold one, although I don't have it with me tonight. You can kind of see in our practice panel how nice that is. And if you have gold metallic paints, sometimes we use Beam metallic paints here, and they do a nice job too. So if you have some metallic paints, that's a great resource to use too. Okay, so I'm going to let my purple dry. We'll get into that design, and you'll get to see that part of it, Love and Life, if you want to stick around for that. I'm going to do some designs in a different color on our boots, but you can see we're using a liner brush, a narrow liner brush. You could use a brush that looks like this. This is a well-used and beaten up round brush. That's a small round brush. It might be like maybe a 2. I'm not certain as I've rubbed off the sizing there, but this is a good size to do that with too. But we'll use our little liner brush, and I'll dip into my cobalt teal. Here, I'm going to move this over so you can see the colors if you're tuning in late. And you can just pretend that you have this really lovely thread and just kind of sketch in a design if you want. There are so many pretty boots. And this might make a great card for your husband if he wears cowboy boots. Let's zoom in here a little bit. All right. We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking to have a good time here. So enjoy painting. Well, I kind of drug my finger through our purple here. It never fails. So you can see how we can kind of just add this little bit of a design with a little liner brush. You could use a pen for this too if you've got a pen that you want to use. Okay, so what I'm going to do really quickly, because I'm going to dry this really quickly so we can at least do this portion again with our jelly roll pens. I'm going to see if I can fix this little bit here, which looks like it might come out pretty nicely. Okay, so I'm going to hit this with a hair dryer really quick. I will mute myself. It'll be seconds and I'll be right back. Okay, so sometimes I hit the back of my paper. You'll see me do that with my hair dryer because sometimes it'll flatten out this paper a little bit. It has a tendency to curl, and sometimes that will make it straighten right out. So, okay, so let's see. So it looks like Love and Life, you do have some metallic pens, paints. Oh, that's good. And you know what? Jelly roll pens are great. This is a really fun exercise. Even if we weren't doing boots, you could use this combination. You just have to make sure that you use the pens after you use the paint because it'll smear otherwise. So we'll just take these and I'll just include a couple of bits around the side here. There's not much room there to do too much of a design, but we can do what we can here and use our other little white pen. So there you go. So that's kind of fun. And you can see how using a little bit deeper color, if I'd have gone a little darker in the purple here, this one's even a little bit darker, it would have shown up better for those pens, but you know, it's just fun to play with them and enjoy it. So let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, that's awesome that she's a barrel racer in college. That's rad. Good for her. I think those square boots are popular with the younger crowd. And yeah, I love them. Love all the different kinds. So that's really cool. You could probably do a little painting for her and she'd love it. So, okay. So what questions do you have for me? Did I go too fast or too slow? Let me know what questions you have in our chat. If you want to learn more about me and my classes, you can visit paigeweber.net. I do a private class once a month, and I do this YouTube class once a month. And then we have an archive of a bunch of classes, and we're a small but mighty group. So if you ever want to paint with us in person via Zoom like technology, we've got it. We'd love to have you. All right, let's see. What questions do we have? Any questions? Okay. Okay, and again, these are the colors that we used tonight for this class. For those of you who are in the private class, I would look for next week's private class worksheet to be up hopefully by the end of this weekend. Let's see, let's switch our camera out. Okay, hey. Thank you again. If you have questions, throw them in chat before I let you go. feel like we had a good class tonight. Thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight to Paint With Me live. I love it when you're able to join. It's good to touch base with you all and to meet some new people too. So thank you. Thanks for tuning in, Laurel. I'll be in touch with you soon and appreciate you being here. And give Andy a squeeze for me too. Hey, thank you for everything, Love and Life. So glad that you were able to join us tonight. And if you guys have any questions in the future, after this class is done and posted, feel free to throw them in chat and I'll do my best to answer them. All right, everybody. Thank you. And I will see you next time. Take care and keep painting.